My name is Paige Allen, and I am the author of Matriarchs. I am so honored that you have chosen to read this book and go through this study together. It is my hope that you leave our time together knowing more about the God we serve and about the fact that He has amazing plans and purposes for your life. We're going to dive into the lives of what I'm calling our matriarchs, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah. Now, I'm going to use a birthing analogy throughout this entire book, but I want you to know this is not a pregnancy or a parenting book, but it is a book about the fact that I think we are called to birth things in partnership with God that bring His kingdom into the earth. To kind of bring you into my mind, let me give you a little story from my own life. This is literally the first story that I thought about as I started to study these women and write this book. I was in labor with my first child, whose name is Selah, who happens to be 16 years old now. And I had been laboring for quite a while. I was in the hospital when all of a sudden my husband walks across the room and he begins to just, pat my head, get the hair out of my face, and which is very kind. But then, when I least expect it, he breaks out into song. And not any song, but Faith Hill's iconic song, Just Breathe. If you're not familiar with it, I want to encourage you to go look it up on YouTube or somewhere, because once you hear this song, you're going to really understand that this is not the song I wanted at the time. I looked at him wondering, is he trying to be funny? Is he trying to comfort me? Does he think I need the reminder to just breathe? Now, thankfully, before I could say something that I was going to regret, my mom caught his eye across the room and she just shook her head like any good mama would. And she let him know that the song was not wanted or needed. She was the matriarch in that room. And I thought of that story because I believe when you are called by God to birth something, and when I'm saying birth something, here's what I mean. Yes, it could be children, but you know what else? It could be a business idea. It could be a ministry idea. It could be a burden for something that you are constantly thinking about, and you know God is asking you to be a part of the solution. Maybe for someone else, you have this idea that's almost more of a movement. You want to mentor people or speak into their lives. Or like me, maybe you have a call to write a book, write a song. I don't know, but I do know this. God creates us to be creative. And He loves to partner with His kids to bring what? A bit of heaven into earth. But when we are in the midst of birthing that thing, it feels heavy. It feels hard. Like my story I just told you, it feels long sometimes and like it's never going to fully come to pass. And we are all surrounded by well-meaning people like my husband who might come and say something like, just breathe. And it's not really helpful because they don't understand what we carry. In that moment, I was thankful my mom was in the room, because although this was not her promise to carry, she understood a little bit about the weight of what it was to carry a promise. And that's what our matriarchs do for us. You see, the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, is filled with stories of men and women who partner with God and who birth things, parts of His kingdom and glory into the earth. Earlier in the year, I was reading all throughout the Bible, and I kept coming across the fact that God is often called the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I love that title for God because it is a reminder to us that God is a God of generations. He's a God of covenant. He's a God of family. But as I was reading it, I started thinking about the fact of, yes, He is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but He was also the God of Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, their 4 feisty wives. And what these men brought into the earth was a family, which means they could not have fulfilled the promise of God on their life without the women, their wives, in their lives. And it's this story, it's this picture of the fact that we have great purpose too as women. You have great purpose and calling in God. So that's what we're going to do. So we are going to look at the lives of Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, And we are going to learn from their example about what it means to say yes to God and bring things into the earth. Now listen, I want you to know this. These women, these matriarchs, they are bold, they're brave, but they are also very human. Everything that you can imagine, every kind of bad emotion that maybe we have in our own world, they had in theirs too. We are going to see them try to control situations. We are going to see them try to tell God how to do his job. You will see them lament and despair. You will see them manipulate, compete, and to complain and compare. You guys, these women are real women. And don't you love that about the Bible? Don't you love that God doesn't sugarcoat it, but instead he shows us real people who he chooses to partner with? It gives me so much hope for my own life. And my hope is that it gives you hope for yours too. Because even when they mess up, he comes right back around, reiterates the promise to them, and says, no, really, I haven't given up on you. I have things for you to birth. Now, here's what we're going to do. Over the next 5 sections or 5 weeks, we're going to look at what I'm calling the 5 stages of birthing a promise of God. Here's what they are. Stage 1 is to receive the promise. Here is what I've discovered. The enemy, he does not want us to birth the promises of God. And so in each and every one of these stages, he comes against us really fulfilling that stage well. So when it comes to receiving the promise of God, he will make us question ourselves and doubt God. We are going to look at how these women had to fight and contend for the promises of God. They make some mistakes as they're trying to contend for it, but eventually they allow his word to settle deep within their hearts and literally to grow roots so that they are not moved. And they believe that he who promised is faithful. Stage 2 is waiting well. You already know this, but anytime we are called to birth something, whether it's a business, an idea, a ministry, or a kid, there will be waiting involved. And I don't know anyone who likes to wait. You might look around the room that you're in right now and ask someone, do you like to wait? Because I know I don't like to wait, but we're all going to have to wait. So let's talk about waiting well. Let's go ahead and expose all of the different pitfalls that could happen while we wait and learn from our matriarchs. Stage 3, after receiving the promise and waiting well, stage 3 is what I'm calling lean into pain. Now, I don't really love this phrasing, but I couldn't come up with anything else because this is the reality of the birthing process. There comes a moment when the wait is over and it's time to push. There comes a moment in the business when you've done all of the planning and it's time to to put in some money, to put in some sweat and some tears. There comes a moment in everyone's promise when it just gets really painful, and yet you are not left alone in that moment. God comes so close. And then after that stage, once the promise has actually come to fruition, we have another stage because the birthing process isn't over. I call stage 4 nurture. You see, every good mom knows that once you have that child, man, now you've got to be a good steward of that child. And nurturing is not for the faint of heart. We're going to look at Sarah. We're going to look at Rebekah. We're going to look at Rachel and Leah, and we're going to see how they nurtured their children because God is a God of generations. We aren't just called to birth things so that they can just go away. No, we birth things and then we nurture them because the promises of God are called to live beyond us. And that takes me to the final stage of release. We are then called to open our hands and release that promise either to the next generation or into a new season of life. This might be actually the hardest season of all. Some of you right now, you find yourself in that season of your birthing process. Just last week, my 2 sisters both had to open their hands and release their daughters. One of them watched her daughter walk across the graduation stage, while the other one planned a beautiful wedding for my oldest niece. It was beautiful and exciting, but painful in its own kind of way. And what we're going to see together is that all 5 stages of birthing a promise of God, they have great joys, and they also have parts that hurt. And yet, in all 5 stages, God is near, and God is good, and God is at work. And so as we get ready to fully dive in to the stories of our matriarchs, I want to leave you with this question. What stage might you be in? Can you immediately say, I know I am in a stage of trying to receive the promise? Maybe you're leaning into pain, or maybe you know it's release. What stage are you in? And then get excited because the matriarchs have some things to teach us about birthing the promises of God. Come ready to receive, come ready to learn, and come vulnerable, ready to share your own story. I believe God is going to meet us in this place. And at the end, we will be women who say yes to partnering with God and bringing about a piece of His kingdom into the earth.